So, a few years ago, I visited my family in India. The first day, I distinctly remember that I went down to the corner market with my cousin, and while we were just purchasing our snacks, I noticed that a few guys across the street were just staring at me. They wouldn't look away, and it made me feel really uncomfortable. I noticed that this kept happening throughout the rest of my time I was there. And if I would go to stores, I noticed that I would be greeted differently than my male family members. Or if I stated my opinion too loudly, random people would just glare at me. I had seen this in Bollywood movies, but experiencing it made me feel like I was in a Bollywood movie.
Now, similarly, I just returned from India a few weeks ago. Now, one experience that really took me aback was the way that men and boys interacted with me in public. And when I say interacted with, let me explain to you what I mean. Everywhere that I went, whether it was the mall, walking down the street, if I was at a temple, I could look up and see the eyes of countless men looking back at me. But it wasn't just that they were looking at me, it was that they were staring at me. They were leering at me. And as you can imagine, that this made me feel very uncomfortable.
Bollywood plays a major role in the proliferation of such attitudes towards women. These attitudes are part of the societal norm in India that many women experience. However, we're just supposed to accept it and move on. While there are countless sources that contribute to this, Bollywood, the Hindi language film industry, is one of the sources. And its portrayal of women in this way is what has led to a lot of the patriarchy in India.
So we're going to begin with a brief history of Bollywood and explore how it has condoned patriarchal ideals throughout its existence. So Bollywood was started in the year 1913, and early films in Bollywood drew inspiration from Hindu epics like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, stories that focused on strong male characters combating evil.
But in the 1940s, India was struggling to gain independence from Great Britain. During this time, many of the movies depicted violent war heroes or military dramas. And then in 1947, India gained its independence from Great Britain. Afterwards, most of the movies depicted more romances and risque love stories.
So these risque love stories caused a widespread concern in India. In fact, in the year 1954, 13,000 Indian women signed and presented a petition to Indian Prime Minister Nehru at the time. They believed that these radically romantic films were an evil influence on the nation's youth. And so the government eventually agreed, and then, from then on, Indian cinema was censored. This led to a change in the portrayal of women in Bollywood. So from then on, women were portrayed as damsels in distress or homemakers.
A great example of this is the 1968 movie Brahmachari. This movie follows the story of a kind man who cares for orphans, and he helps a woman to appeal to her love interest by teaching her how to dress, behave, and act from a men's point of view. This movie gained a lot of awards and was a major box office hit, but it portrayed women as obedient and often submissive.
So as the years progressed, not much changed. In the year 1995, a very popular movie by the name of Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge became popular. So this is a movie that our generation, millennials, have grown up watching. And the title of the movie roughly translates to "The Brave-Hearted Will Take Away His Bride."
In this movie, two Indian strangers fall in love with each other. But the heroine of this movie is depicted without an identity. She's often portrayed in relation to the men in her life, either as a daughter or as a love interest, and subject to societal norms.
So this shows how women in Indian cinema are portrayed as complementary and supplementary characters to men who are the focal point. And in addition, Indian cinema also portrays item songs, which are dance numbers where scantily clad actresses perform provocative dances.
Now, why are we concerned about the portrayal of women in Bollywood? Well, Bollywood is a $2.28 billion industry. They produce over 1,600 films a year, 10 times that of Hollywood, and they sell twice as many tickets as the United States movies do. And in the industry itself, 6.2 men to 1 female is the ratio, twice that of the United States.
Now, what exactly do these numbers tell us? So obviously Bollywood has a very large reach in India, so it should be no surprise that it also plays a large role in shaping the mindsets of the people in India. It can be argued that Western movies also portray gender stereotypes in cinema and popular culture. But the key difference here with Bollywood is that it's in India, where society and culture is dramatically more conservative than the Western world.
Now, Bollywood and India have contrasting takes on the Indian culture, producing conflicting messages to the society. For example, societal norms restrict interactions between girls and boys in India. In this case, they portray more of conservative clothing and encourage girls to stay at home until they're married. But Bollywood takes a more modern twist on this. What I mean by that is that people wear more risque and revealing clothing, and premarital relationships are often encouraged.
As Humaira Nuristani of Foreign Policy states, the role of women in Indian cinema is a reflection of a woman's role in society from a man's viewpoint. And this often leads to the objectification of women and poor treatment of women. Glorification of hypermasculinity and violence influence this kind of culture.
So, violence is a very prevalent theme in Bollywood movies. A campaign by Frame Her Right found that 95% of Indian women felt very uncomfortable watching movies where there is violence against women. And 55 to 70% of married Indian women live in a domestically abusive relationship. A court case in Australia found that a man was stalking two women. When asked why he did that, he said that it was common in Bollywood movies for this to happen, and the woman eventually ended up falling in love with the men. But even the lawyer defended him, and he said this behavior is typical of Indian men, so it should just be affected.
In 2012, a horrific incident in New Delhi took headlines worldwide. In 2012, a young woman was brutally attacked and gang raped. A few days after the attack, she died of her injuries. And so this event sparked a worldwide conversation about how Indian culture and also Bollywood contribute to such ideals in India.
Following these tragic events, a documentary called India's Daughter was released, and it kind of tracked the incidents of rape culture within India. However, the government banned it, saying that it went against many of the Indian cultures and morals. And even members of parliament at the time said that it should be banned because it would lead to men feeling uncomfortable by the thoughts and actions that they had.
Another event it happened very recently. On New Year's Eve this past December, in Bangalore, India, mobs of men took to the main streets of the city in what ended up being a mass molestation of women who happened to be celebrating New Year's Eve. And these events were highly documented. There were videos and pictures that were shared on social media sites and covered by news organizations. However, government officials in India, such as the police commissioner of Bangalore, refused to believe that any of these events happened. In fact, they blatantly denied that this happened.
The most frightening part of this is the fact that women had to take most of the blame for what had happened. In fact, even after it happened, the Home Minister just said, these things happen. And he said that women should just accept it, which just shows that the government and officials in India are not ready to move forward from the binding effects of the patriarchy.
Now, these denials don't just come from the government, they also come from Bollywood itself. In fact, one of the most popular actors in India is Shah Rukh Khan. And he has been quoted saying that he does not believe that Bollywood plays any part in the maltreatment of women in Indian society. However, there are some notable actors and actresses who do recognize that this is a problem and are working to address this. These include Malika Sherawat, Farhan Akhtar, Kalki Koechlin, and Amitabh Bachchan.
Now, these actors have led to an increasing number of Bollywood movies that help to promote feminism and women's rights. All the while, they help to bring down the patriarchy and demote the binding gender norms. A couple of examples of this are Dear Zindagi. Dear Zindagi is the story of a woman that is encouraged to follow her ambitions while breaking down these gender norms. On the other hand is Dangal. Dangal is the true story of a father that encourages his young daughters to pursue a professional career in wrestling. Radical ideas considering the societal norms that currently exist.
Now, it is indisputable that India still has a long ways to go before women are treated equally. Bollywood plays a large role in shaping Indian society, and so instead of condoning patriarchal ideals as it currently does, Bollywood should instead promote the better treatment of women. Now, Bollywood is starting to head in that direction, but it's not enough. Bollywood needs to keep moving forward. And in order to do this, conversations both on and off screen will be required if Bollywood wants to promote gender equality in India.
Thank you.